RDU, I mean, this guy was so dominant last year in Hearthstone, and obviously a lot of controversy surrounding what was going on with him. But RDU, fantastic player. Expect him to be prominent in this new format where Handlock is, a lot of people thought it was going to die out because people expected to be GH, but they have alternate lines of attack with Twilight Drakes and Sludge Belchers and Antique Healbots now, like multiple ways to get threats on the board. So, a pretty big deal that's going on there. And then, of course, this match is underway already. That we see going in, but just finish it up, and then Chalky and Backspace, two great NA players. Chalky was #1 last season, and Backspace known as a deck builder in a new edition Archon.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's looking like it is going to be Pally versus Pally here, and this is one of the decks we really saw shining just recently, in the Tournament of the Weekcast. Was Pally. I mean, we really saw so much success with this deck. And it'll be interesting to see if it's going to be, the standard that was kind of developing in that tournament really had been, Warlock, Paladin, Warrior as the 3 standard decks. And obviously we weren't playing with ban format and that. So I'm interested to see, how players are going to kind of adjust their decks here going forward and how it's going to evolve. Because, I mean, we really didn't see very much success from aggro decks in general. It seemed like, Zoo had kind of been replaced by Paladin and, yeah.
Yeah, I think aggro decks they're kind of a different beast because they're very, they're very unrefined right now. And for aggro decks to be really good, they have to be refined. So typically I would just expect decks that have lots of powerful cards in them to kind of be the best decks right now. And that's sort of what Paladin is. It just kind of has all the best cards. This turn right here was particularly interesting to me because there actually wasn't a token being run into this Annoyatron, and going into a Coin Consecrate turn, now he can't actually attack this with Light's Justice, so this might have been a little bit of an oversight. This Annoyatron's going to stick to the board. And be annoying is, I think, an understatement at this point, because it's going to be able to pick off this... this next token that I assume he's going to make would stick to the board, because this Annoyatron would be dying. So a little bit of an oversight, maybe from that position. So, Ostkaka, I just talked about how great of a player he's been, and how much he's been playing on ladder, and how well he's been doing. But that little mistake... going to cost him a 1-1 in the meantime.
Yeah, for sure. So it is guys, Ostkaka versus Blackout, of course, and it is going to be Ostkaka there on the bottom. So, already developing a pretty strong board, and we do see Consecration is going to come down, going to be able to clear this out. And, this has been a pretty evenly matched start, honestly. We do see Quartermaster in hand, but at the same time, it's people have already used their muster, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where they're going to go from here. How do you feel about the Cultist, by the way, for card draw? That's something that we didn't really see too much of. I know players have been making that addition, but do you feel like that's really worthwhile here?
It's tough to say. I don't have a ton of experience with playing with Cult Master. It's a card that I know was in a lot of Hunter decks, and sort of in last season, prior to GVG coming out, and I strongly disagreed with it in that deck. But in Paladin, it's a little bit different, because you expect your guys to kind of stick to the board a little bit more often, and you're going to be using you're going to be using Cult Master to kind of refuel, instead of in Hunter, where your refuel was meant to make sure that you get to your reach. And Paladin, it's to make sure that you can continue to play threats throughout the course of the game, answer what your opponent's doing, make sure that you can dance around a little bit and make sure you're not just losing all of your cards and then you're out of the game because you don't have anything left. Strife Crow, I believe, was the first person I saw using Cult Master. And how effective it is. Again, I'm just not sure at this point, because I don't have a ton of experience with it, but it looks to me like it's going to be pretty fantastic in this matchup. Both these guys are going to go pretty even for a while, and I think Cult Master might end up making a big difference.
How do you feel about not owling the ooze there? Do you think that was worthwhile? I mean, I guess it's not really that big of a deal dealing with the death rattle. He had a nice, easy way to deal with it. It's not like he lost his minion or anything like that. But I mean. What do you think? What do you think his big reasoning there is? Do you think he's worried about just having that in hand for a Tyrion later?
Yeah, Tyrion, Sylvanas, I think, are the two that are coming to mind. Silences have been kind of trimmed from a lot of these decks. There's usually
so you might not have to anymore.
Right. Yeah. So before you were running 2 because it was just silence was so important, and you really didn't have access to better actual cards. But again, with GVG being out, there's just so much stuff that you want to fit in your deck, and you only have a 30 card slot. You know, like in other card games, you can play with more than the cap on your deck a lot of times. Like in Magic, you can play with, you have to play with minimum 60 cards, but you can play with 62 if you really needed to fit in a couple extra tech spots. And this is sort of be a niche game that I'm going to reference here, but there is a game called Kaijudo where you could play with, you had to play with, I think it was 40 cards, and then you could play with more than 40 cards if you wanted to. And all the best decks in that game usually ran more than 40 cards because you just needed extra slots. So you didn't have to dedicate cards to resources, except for in the game you turned cards into resources. But in that game, like running more than the minimum number of cards was like a huge benefit, not only because of percentages of what you would draw, but because you just needed extra card slots. In Hearthstone, you don't have that liberty. Like you have to run 30 cards. And I'm sure right now in Hearthstone, if you could, you would run more than 30 cards just because there's so much stuff that you want to fit in your deck. And because things are so unrefined, you don't know what the best strategy is.
Yeah, for sure. This is looking like a bit of a tough turn right here. I mean, already down 17 HP. You know, he can obviously go True Silver to clear this out, but he is going to be taking some more damage, and he doesn't have really a great way just to clear all these minions off the board. And we see Cult Masters in hand, so I mean, if he can start, like, if a minion gets played and he can start trading in and start getting a lot of card draw, this could be like a really big advantage. But
yeah, I imagine it's going to be Knife Juggler, True Silver, Haunted Creeper, not in that order.
Yeah.
True Silver is going to take out this 3/3 first, so he wants to make sure he can juggle a 1/1, or try to juggle a 1/1. But
it's going to set up for some nice card draw, though.
Yeah, especially if that owl doesn't get juggled.
Oh, wow.
He's not going to go for the juggle. Okay.
Okay.
You know, not a big surprise. You know, the 1/1's still going to threaten the board a little bit.
Maybe just trying to hold for a second muster. I mean, if he could get a second muster for battle, like if he could get Knife Juggler, Muster, and Quartermaster on one turn, that would be pretty insane turn.
Yeah, that's definitely something he's thinking about. I think the other one is also that he just wants to, get the most out of every point of mana that he can. He doesn't expect this game to end right away.
This is an easy 3-card draw turn, though. I mean, he could Cogmaster if he wants, and oh wow, really? I'm shocked that he's not.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, but I can see why he's doing it. Again, he wants to get the True Silver charge out of the way, and he's just gonna apply the pressure. Like you said, his opponent's was down to 16 health. It's like, oh geez,
that is a big draw. Oh man.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Where do you go this turn? I mean,
I feel like you just. Wow. I mean, obviously it would be nice to.
He's gonna True Silver
kind of hard. Yeah, I mean, you got to True Silver first, but I think you True Silver the Quartermaster.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I think you True Silver the Quartermaster, and then you just Knife Juggler, Muster.
Where do you run the?
Where do you run the Haunted Creeper? I think
you run the Haunted Creeper.
Start seeing where stuff lands. I mean, I think you do into the 3/3. Yeah. You could also silence the 3/3. No, you don't have him. Wait, yeah, you do. You could silence the 3/3 if you wanted, but I don't think he's gonna bother. I don't think there's any need.
I don't think so either. Again, he obviously feels pretty comfortable with his life total, despite the fact that he's taken some damage. But I have to agree with you. I imagine this is going to be maybe.
I think he's gonna hit the Quartermaster, run into the 3/3, play the Muster battle. Oh, he is gonna silence it up, so he really wants to get stuff cleared out. That tells me he is a little bit nervous about his life total here, but still, he's gonna have so many juggles. Okay. Okay, so he's going for like. Yeah, he may not. He may be just trying to hold it. I think it's also going to depend where those juggles landed. Maybe if he took out the owl, then he wouldn't have actually gone for it. So we'll see. I'm sure he's going to get the owl. He does. He gets the full clear, and oh my, not going to have an answer. And he's got to be regretting not trading in some of those minions when he could have for the card draw. He does have land hands, so that's going to be something. But still, kind of put himself in a bit of a bad position. One thing that's huge, though, Tyrion gets drawn there, and the owl was just used on a 3/3 token, so that could really come back to bite him.
Yep, and then the zombie child's going to heal him right back up. This is part of the reason why I do and don't like his plan, actually. And I like his plan because he followed through on the aggression that he was applying, and it's really nice. It's good to follow through on your game plans, but this was a consequence of that aggression. Is when a situation like this happens. Obviously, I don't think he's expecting a Knife Juggler full clear, but a Consecrate would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
And keeping that in mind, I definitely would have favored Cult Master. I mean, it's in here so that you can refuel. This isn't a deck that does a great job at applying a lot of burst pressure, especially when you just have a few minions on the board. Quartermaster is basically your burst. So when you get into a position where you're not quartermastering to set up lethal, maybe you're overlooking a couple things. I think you should have gone.
That's gonna be it.
Yeah, I think you should have gone for the Cult Master. I would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of have to start digging. I mean, it just seemed like that was a really surprising play to me because it's like that's the whole reason you had that card in your first round. Pretty surprising. But anyway, we are going to be going into game 2 here, and it is going to be Handlock to go up against this Paladin. And a very nice opening hand here for Ostkaka. He has really nice couple turns starting.
Yeah,
off.
he's got options in front of him, man. He's got options on top of options, and 2 Defender of Argus. This is something that I've been seeing come up a little bit more in Paladin. Mountain Giant right off the bat, though, and there's not an Equality or an Aldor Peacekeeper in hand straight away, and there's also 2 copies of Hellfire. So, I think Ostkaka, he's going to need to tread lightly this game because he doesn't want to commit too much to the board, but at the same time, without those options in his hand, without Aldor Peacekeeper, without Equality, he's got to figure out a way to apply pressure so that way he can threaten these large minions as they come out, or maybe even just threaten his opponent. But again, Handlock, this has sort of been my experience with Handlock too, is that it's just been so dominant. Like, people are just struggling to find the right answer to Handlock. It's like almost too good right now. Because, again, it's so hard to refine the aggro decks exactly where you need to be, or just your game plan of attack in general. So when that happens, I would tend to favor the large min-game minions to rule the field.
Mm-hmm. I think we're just going to see like a coin shredder perhaps coming out here. So, I mean, he may want to save it, but it seems like a pretty weak turn otherwise, and that kind of sets up a nice Argus turn and stuff. So I think, coin Argus. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I like this a lot.
Yeah. That's equally.
He's already protecting against Hellfire.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the card that's definitely on his mind. And again, a ton of pressure applying. The trade-off for this is that he is going to be putting his opponent in a Molten Giant range, but this is one of those spots I feel like you're just going to have to kind of... it's like your opponent's going all in, and you're like, all right, well, I called. Do you have the Molten Giant?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
He's like, yeah, I got it. I got 2 of them, in fact.
I mean, it's tough because the thing is, it's like you said, you can't just sit there. You can't do nothing, even if you don't have the answers. You can't always just wait around because it's going to put yourself in a position where you're not going to necessarily recover the board if Warlock has too much time to kind of develop. But at the same time, I mean, he's going to have a chance to actually start drawing into stuff here, and it looks like he is going to just trade in, get a couple card draws here, and it's he's going to be able to get some value. Obviously, not the happiest thing to heal up your opponent a bit, but still, not too bad.
Both these players playing Cult Master in their Paladin, by the way. So, pretty easy Hellfire turn here. But again, the Zombie Chow actually is kind of working against Blackout at the moment because he's having to he's getting further out of Molten Giant range with the Zombie Chow heals. So, the card draws that are picked up there, he applied a little bit of early pressure, got a Hellfire out of his opponent, got some card draws out of a Cult Master. I think he's in a pretty decent position this game. He doesn't got Owl, he's got Piloted Shredder. Piloted Shredder, by the way, really so key against Handlock right now because just the extra 4 damage you can apply plus getting an extra body out of it is just, it's so much against this deck because it's a threat to their life total and it's a threat to the mid-range style minions that they're playing.
It's been an interesting turn. I mean, he was mousing over the Knife Juggler a bit there, but I mean, if he goes Knife Juggler, I wouldn't be surprised to see him just use Cog Hammer as well. But it's going to be Muster, so he's just going to go for the damage, just juggling it out, and it's probably going to be another Hellfire turn for sure. I mean, he's definitely not going to want to get that Mustard. At the same time, I mean, I guess like if you let that get Quartermastered, you can still Hellfire, but you could just take too much damage. So we'll see with draws. We'll see exactly what he's going to want to do here, and it is just going to be another Hellfire. Not too surprising. An Ancient Watcher to follow that up, and I mean that threatens a Shadow Flame as well. So the board is just continually being wiped, continually being threatened, and he's getting towards that Molten Giant turn very, very quickly here.
Yeah, again, something we talked about. Paladin doesn't really have a lot of burst to end these games, so once he's in Molten Giant range, it's this is a scary turn to tread on. If you're in Ostkaka's position, you're just you're like, I don't want to get him too much lower because I don't want him to play a free Molten Giant, but I have to actually kill him too.
Yeah, exactly. It is kind of rough. I mean, he's basically going to get the free Molten Giant next turn anyway, and he's going to kind of just set up for this trade, paying a bit of life total for that. But let's see. I mean, he could even just Argus this and take a free trade if he wants, but a lot of options here. All right, it's actually going to decide to silence, and that's something that I was wondering if he was going to go for, because that does obviously open up to a pretty Chungturian turn. And yeah, Warlocks have other options to deal with that. They do have, Soul Siphon and things like that, but Siphon Soul rather. But you're still gonna have to deal with the weapon then, and is pretty threatening. But down to 11 HP, has Ancient Heal Bot in his hand, has the taunts available, and it's looking like it's pretty good position for Blackout, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Again, it's just been no Equality, no Aldor Peacekeeper, and Handlock. I mean, it's sort of a very dominant position. Sludge Belcher are going to be a bit of a speed bump, but look at this hand from Blackout. It's like all the answers available, really, and not under a ton of a threat of pressure. You mentioned Siphon Soul, but something that I saw, this is something a Life Coach actually did, is he cut Siphon Soul out of his Handlock deck.
Oh, really? Wow.
And he was running 2 big game hunters.
Okay.
And I played around a bit with that deck, and it feels really powerful, but it is a lot harder to play when you don't have Siphon Soul in there. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Being harder to play sometimes is bad, but I think with a deck like Handlock, you want your turns to be difficult. You want to be making tough decisions. And, we mentioned how using that Owl on the piloted Shredder helped prevent a minion there, but how important is that body? The average is going to be probably somewhere around 2 or 3 power. And was that something he really needed to pick off? Because, you do have to think about Tyrion, you do have to think about Sylvanas, so we happen to have both of those in hand right now.
Still, it's a very tough turn. I mean, the thing is, it's like it's nice to play Tyrion, but at the same time, can you afford to not silence up the Drake? I mean, and if you don't silence up the Drake, I mean, it's like, and even if you do, say you do, Sylvanas and you Owl up the Drake, even then, you're looking at taking 12 damage next turn.
Yep, I think he's gonna have to play Tyrion here, honestly.
Yeah, I think you're forced to, even though you really don't want to. I mean, you love to, like, anytime you can silence the Drake, it's like such a good play, especially when it's already buffed up by Argus as well. But your life total is just too low.
He's got to get through. He's got to get through this. He's got to get through the Ancient Watcher too. So that that's something else he's thinking about. Is he's got to punch through this if he's going to silence this Drake. Obviously, he wants to pick it off this turn. So this is really this has to be Owl. There's just really no other play here. So he's going to get the Drake out of the way. Reduces opponent's board power to 10, which isn't it is a lot less than it was before, but still a lot to have to be dealing with.
Well, he is down to 9 HP, and I think that was a good play. I mean, it does force him to have something. Well, and there's the Mortal Coil actually to get that extra damage. He's actually going to Shadow Flame it up, so he's just going to be able to Shadow Flame through here, and we'll punch through 10 damage to the face, and now down to 8 HP, and does have the Tyrion though, so I mean, not in the worst possible position. And I mean, it has to be Tyrion. There's no really. I mean, he could obviously Lotheb and Coghammer if he wanted, or Sylvanas Coghammer. I mean, do you like that more?
Well, yes and no. It's like I like Coghammer this turn. I like Tyrion. All of these options are good. It's just a matter of what he thinks about. He's gonna have to worry about going forward. So, taking a look at it, if he plays Tyrion, it's more of like a. I think it's a lot more YOLO than something like Lotheb and Coghammer, and Sylvanas Coghammer I think is strictly worse than Lotheb Coghammer right now, because if you play Sylvanas and Coghammer, he's going to run his board into this. You're not going to get a ton of value out of the Sylvanas, and if you play Lotheb and Coghammer, your opponent doesn't have an option to Siphon Soul it next turn. So if they have a silence, obviously you're going to bite the dust, but if they have a silence in any of these positions, you're gone. So, how to move forward is a matter of how to keep your options on the turns after this open. So I think it's going to be Lotheb Coghammer. He's going to want to follow this probably by Tyrion and then play Sylvanas afterwards and hope to recover the game. Yeah,
and it does give him a couple of very strong turns, to be honest with you. It's like, not something it's like, it looks like almost like Control Paladin at this point. I mean, it is some very strong late game, even though it is kind of, a mid game, even has a lot of strong early game and stuff. The deck has a lot going on late game as well, and this is kind of proof of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons why it's just so powerful. It's got options at pretty much every stage of the game. Peacekeeper. That is very likely to change the sequence of plays that I just predicted. So it's definitely going to be Peacekeeper here. And again, still dead to silence, but he hasn't had a way to play around silence for turns now, so it's not something he's considering in his opponent's range at this point. He's just hoping he doesn't have it and moving forward from there.
Oh no, off the top. And that is going to be game. Silences off the Aldor Peacekeeper damage reduction, and that is going to be tied up 1-1.
Wow. This matchup is one I...
But I mean, to be fair, we didn't see an equality drawn. We didn't see Peacekeeper until late, and those are two cards that are, just massive against Handlock, in my opinion.
Yeah, they definitely are. They're such important cards to draw, but at the same token, look at what kind of positions you get in when you don't draw them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it almost reminds me a little bit of Shaman versus Handlock, just in like how Equality and Eldor are kind of like your Hex and your Earthshock. It's like if you get those cards, you can get this massive, massive advantage, and if you don't, it can sometimes look pretty ugly.
Yep. So Ostkaka is going to go with Freeze Mage here. I said I've been seeing him play this a lot, and it already looks like it's changed from the last version I saw. I don't think he had Pyroblast in there originally, and but he's got it this time. And Blackout's hand is not too good looking at the moment.
No, not at all.
No,
but he still has some more cards, more chances to draw. So we'll see if he gets anything by turn 4. Still 3 more cards to draw.
Yep. This is a matchup I think is like particularly poor for Handlock as well. By the way, when you get your mid game action rolling, you're just gonna get frozen a lot, and then they're gonna sit behind an ice block, and then they're gonna try to kill you. And since you're already paying life to burn, since you're already paying life to draw cards, they don't typically have to Alex Straza you, because you're just already so low on life. So this is just a matter of how many cards can he draw? Can he stay alive long enough? Is he gonna have the burn to finish him? And looking at this hand, I'm seeing, I personally am seeing a very early yes as the answer to that. Mountain Giant comes out straight away, but again, just look at this hand. He's got answers. He's got ways to stall. He's got plenty of life that he can kind of mess with at this point. He's going to draw a lot of cards. This is looking really good for Ostkaka early on, and Blackout's hand is just I don't know if Handlock really has the tools to deal with this. It just wants to apply pressure and kind of hope you don't have freezes.
Looks like he's going to just go for additional draws here and just pay the life that you were talking about. I mean, this is guaranteed. Oh, no. Okay, so he's actually going to go face with that. Interesting.
Whoa!
I'm really surprised with that. I thought it was going to be the extra draw for sure.
Yeah, here's the reason why he's not doing that. If he pings his own Acolyte and draws a card, it can get Mortal Coiled, and then he can blow up the loot order and burn a card from him. So that's what he's trying to avoid here is a card burn.
That's fair.
Because he knows he's going to draw more cards later on in this game. These minions are oftentimes just going to kind of suicide to draw their cards. So, him picking up an extra card here is actually too many cards to draw, believe that or not. And I think that's exactly what he's thinking about. And at this point, this is where the stall game begins. And, if he can pick up an ice block or a mad scientist to get into an ice block, maybe he can pick this up. But in the meantime, it's just going to be damage from Blackout side of the board. You see him silencing the freeze off this giant and 8 more.
Yeah.
I'm glad you recognize this. This is probably his way to actually try to steal this game is just to, put damage on the board and hope that his opponent doesn't have all the freezes.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, he does have a couple freezes. He has a couple blizzards in hand. I believe an Ice Nova I see on the left side of his hand as well. I mean, he does have some options, but definitely already kind of nervous about your life total sitting at 14 HP. And I mean, you kind of have to be a little bit nervous that potentially there could be even another silence to get another 8 damage in. And I mean, we see that there's another great turn coming up next. Dr. Boom already sitting in hand, so looks like he's going to decide to see what he's going to pick up, but I don't know if there's really that much point. I mean, what would actually change your turn here?
It's tough to say. Anyway. I think he just wants to pick up the card. If he's going to draw the card anyway, it's better to sequence this way, so I think it's just kind of going through the motions correctly. Another silence gets picked up.
Oh, man. That's what I was talking about. He could just go face with it. I think he will, yeah, so it's just going to be another 8 damage to the face, and
I mean, that 9, by the way.
Brutal.
He's going straight for it.
And
down to 5.
Wow.
Down to 3. I forgot about the Ooze token. He's actually in Dark Bomb range. He's got to get an Ice Block out.
Yeah, and he doesn't have one. I mean, I think he has to play. He has to ping his own. He has to ping his own Blood Mage, doesn't he?
I don't know.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have enough. Otherwise, he wouldn't have enough mana. Does he have? He doesn't have Ice Block in hand, does he?
Here's the thing. No, he doesn't have Ice Block in hand. Here's what I'm looking at is that at this point, he's going to look at it from this perspective. Can he even play around Dark Bomb or Hellfire? Yeah. And I think the answer is no. I think he's just got to take massive risks this game. If he gets say he gets an Ice Block up here, it's like sure you got an Ice Block, it gets popped immediately. Yeah, he's turn to the dumps.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's done. I don't think there's anything you can do. I mean, what are you going to do in this situation? I mean, you can Blizzard, yeah, you can do that, but I mean, fact of the matter is, there's so many ways you could die. I mean, like you said, Dark Bombs, Hellfires. We saw that there's 2 Hellfires in the deck, so we know there's 2 Dark Bombs in the deck. Plus there's still you have to kill your opponent. This is brutal. So it's going to be Frost Nova and Ice Barrier. Okay.
Yep. I mean, I like this sequence, but it's a matter of 2 silences dealing 8 and 9 extra damage, respectively. It just was too much in the end, and wow, I was sort of looking at it. Looked like it was bad for Blackout in the beginning, but two silences in a Mountain Giant will definitely change the way that you look at the Freeze Mage versus Handlock matchup. And we mentioned the importance of his Warlock band, so he's going to be down to
Control Warrior, probably.
Yeah, to Warrior at this point, and Blackout actually had his Warrior band. I assume because there's a Freeze Mage in this lineup. So, really good foresight there from Ostkaka. But, like you said, just the Freeze Mage matchup not working out for him. And Handlock versus Warrior, it's something that I don't feel like is that bad. I favor Warrior in this matchup a lot.
Yeah, that's what we've seen so far. I mean, in GVG, It has seemed like there's just too many answers from Warrior. Like, Warrior has so many ways to remove these minions, and it's not even about, like, killing them. It's just about killing all their threats, it seems like.
Yeah, that's what I feel like it is, too. Is that when you get in that position, it's just a matter of, can Warrior kill all the threats? And if it can, if it stops all the threats, that's usually it. It's just Warrior runs away with the game after that. But so one of the reasons I think it's been able to answer all these threats though is because it's had Harrison for cards like Jiraxis, so people have been kind of unwilling to play that card. A lot of swap overs I've seen have been to either not running Jiraxis at all or running Alexstrasza, and it looked to me like I'm gonna mention Life Coach here again. He was running Sneed's Shredder in that spot as just an additional giant threat, and that's something that Warrior's really going to struggle with is Sneed's Shredder. But Blackout's chosen to go with Alexstrasza here, so sort of balancing his play. He still wants some options against aggro to heal back up, but an 8/8 body will still very often get the job done versus Warrior.
Yeah, definitely. Well, he's gonna have the Owl out silencing up that Acolyte, and I mean, it's definitely something that's always pretty scary, honestly, when you see an Acolyte come down and they're getting a lot of draws from him. So I definitely do understand wanting to silence that up, but at the same time, it's decisions like that can be kind of tough to make sometimes because you are denying card draws, but in this situation, I mean, look at the hand that's already there, so it's not really gonna help him too much, I don't think. And he's not gonna have silences available perhaps for things like the Sledge Belcher that's already there. And
Black Knight is a really, really interesting addition to this deck. Once again, I think when you see this, he's really targeting Handlock.
Yeah,
a lineup like this, he wants to just have that one extra piece to help deal with what's going on, and it's not going to be doing too much here, I assume. Of course, I say that, and then Defender of Argus picked up the challenge. This Sludge Belcher straight away, so Black Knight, I am almost certain.
And it's the turn 6 Black Knight, man. That's the dream right there. That's exactly what you want. Oh man, that is like when you get turn 6 Black Knighted, it's nothing worse than that. I mean, he's gonna lose a 5/7 taunt here, plus a 4/5 body comes down on the board. There's no way that it could be a different play. I don't think.
Not with this hand. If he had one extra mana, then maybe you could see like Execute Sylvanas or Execute Shield.
Yeah.
Just 7 points of effective damage is too much to really deny. And then, like you said, plus the 4/5 body is super.
It's like basically like a 6-mana targeted Ragnaros that turn. That's what it is. I mean, it's pretty insane. So definitely gonna be really happy about that turn for sure. And I honestly would just like to see. I'd like to see. What do you think? Do you think just Dr. Boom?
Well, I like.
Do you trigger your bombs?
That's what I'm curious about. Is do you activate your bombs or not? He's not gonna. I mean, I not that I blame him for this. Looks like it's gonna be Whirlwind. Wait a minute.
I blame him.
I thought that maybe this was gonna be like a Whirlwind Shield Maiden or a Whirlwind Sylvanas. He's just gonna go for Boom. So, giving up a little bit of value, but just, I mean, what can Blackout do at this point? He's gonna have to go for Hellfire. And then Big Game Hunter afterwards. So able to clear this board up nicely, but he took a lot of damage in the process.
What did maybe that's something. Did you see? I didn't. It seemed like they must have rolled low. I didn't see that much.
He looked 18. He was on to 18 after the Hellfire, right? So it was 1 and 2, I think.
Yeah. So quite low. I mean, it could be a lot worse. You can get 8 damage from that versus 3. So I mean, it could potentially be a 10 HP, but at the same time, that would be a free Molten next turn. So
your average is about 5 damage.
Yeah.
2.5 damage per bomb. That's right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 2.5 damage per bomb.
Yeah.
Blackout staring at that Alexstrasza.
Yeah.
Mating health to 15.
He wants it, man.
Yeah.
Wants it real bad. This is interesting. I wasn't really expecting Sylvanas, to be honest with you. Just because I feel like when you're not playing it into something, it makes it a lot easier to deal with.
Oh, for sure. I
Yeah.
think this is one of the best turns. I think Blackout really could have been hoping for. Here, he's gonna siphon soul it. Yeah, I can't blame him for that. He's got to get rid of his 4/2 first, so it doesn't give his opponent value.
Oh
Ragnaros
wow,
gets picked up.
Ragnaros.
I think
Actually,
that's gonna sit in hand
yeah.
for.
With,
Whoa! It's
no,
just gonna
I
come
think it's coming
straight
down, man. With the
Wow!
Soul Siphon already used, I think it's a great play. If his opponent doesn't have another Soul Siphon, yeah, sure, play Molten Giants into my Ragnaros.
Yeah, you're right. He's seen big game.
Oh, Sylvanas.
Wow. If he plays this Sylvanas though, he's dead to something like a
Yeah,
silence
but
Ghoul spell.
what does he have? He doesn't. I mean, he can Alex Straza, I guess. But
Yeah. This might be like a molten shadow flame. That sounds really gross.
yeah, it does sound really gross.
So if he does that, I imagine Twilight Drake's going to come down first. But it wouldn't surprise me to really see that. Looks like he went with the Shadow Flame play, and it was in the Twilight Drake as well. But just Grommash able to finish this out afterwards. And that was the play. I was even forgetting about the Grommash in hand. Just 10 straight damage to the face. That's why he played the Ragnaros.
All right, so we are quickly into what's going to be the final game here. So it is going to be Druid as that last class.
I think this is whoa. That's a good one.
Yeah, pretty dead hand otherwise.
Yeah, I was gonna say this hand is like it's decent with the Ancient Allure and Innervate. Ancient Allure obviously such a strong card versus Warrior. They're able to deal with a lot of the threats that you're kind of putting in front of their face, but they're taking damage to do that. So one of the things this is why I think Druid has such a good matchup versus this is because you go for one with your opponent, but they're taking damage, removing most of your stuff, or at least a lot of the time they are. You're refueling with Ancient Allure, and then you have Force of Nature and Savage Roar to finish off the game. And right straight away, we see Acolyte of Pain coming down. All he's got is weapons hands. He wants to draw Shield Block in this position. He wants to pick up Shield Maiden. He needs Sludge Belchers. There's so much stuff that it's like on the Warrior's side. Like they have to draw everything and hope that it goes best for them. But it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree that it can be, somewhat Druid favorite matchup, but I think that's on the back of having, good early game minions, like threat after threat after threat, and so far, his hand has not been so good. I mean, he draws another Innervate, it's like, he's not really drawing into the stuff he wants. This is the times that he wants to be playing, Brawl, well, like Spectral Knights and Yetis and like Druid of the Claws and getting that damage in, getting those threats out there.
Yeah, definitely wants more stuff than what he has right now. But execute available. He not going to have to take 5 damage from this Ancient Allure. I think it's something he's really happy about. His Keeper of the Groves get it cleaned up. He's already picked up an extra card. He's got the Brawl, like you said. I mean, this might be like a really good chance for him to actually stabilize. And he has Black Knight in this deck too. So, Druid of the Claw. Sometimes it has to get taunted up in this matchup. And when that happens, I don't think you're very happy about it in the Druid's position, especially not when you've seen already Black Knight in this matchup. So, if Druid of the Claw gets picked up, I would expect it to pretty much always go into charge.
Yeah.
When it hits the board.
Almost always does, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. This is looking kind of rough, I think, for the Druid. I mean, the thing is, with Druid, there's always the potential to come back. There's always that, like, out of nowhere win, especially when a Shade is down. I mean, you can have those turns that are just insane. I mean, if that can sit there stealth for a while, the Shade can build up, and then he has the combo in hand. So I mean, it's like combo plus Shade is an insane amount of damage, and he has Innervate. So I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, if he picks up a second Savage Roar, he could potentially innovate and have a second combo there. Sludge Belcher probably going to be the play here, and what it would have been otherwise, I imagine it probably would have been a couple of shield blocks to make sure he's digging to what he needs, but this really going to easily get the job done. And like you said, Blackout is just Druid always has that potential to recover, and he's going to continue to draw cards. This is his second Ancient Allure now, and
Black
here's
Knight.
the question. Yeah, I don't think he should innervate this Shade, and the reason I don't is because when you have Force Nature Savage Roar in your hand, I think you want to save the second innervate for turn 10, for a 10 mana turn, when you can play 2 Savage Roars with your Force Nature. It's just so much. I mean, that alone is 22, not counting all the other minions you have.
And not counting the Shade, if the Shade stays out there. I mean, if the Shade stays out there, it's like lethal from full HP.
Yeah.
It is, I mean.
Right, yeah, right
crazy,
now it would be 28 damage, and then going to his next turn, it'd be 29 damage. So much.
Yeah. And I mean, the Black Knight may actually get some really good value here. I mean, I don't think he really wants to trade in like this. I mean, I guess he could Cruel Task, kill it off. There are lots of things you can deal with it.
Cruel Taskmaster is really what sort of changed my mind.
He's gonna pay the life. Wow.
Yeah, so he picks up the shield block. Second Cruel Taskmaster. So, yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that wasn't a double Cruel Taskmaster turn. Just a little bit, not like too much, but like you said, Black Knight. This is a pretty easy Black Knight turn, and since he picked up Loatheb, he wants to save the Innervate, but Innervate Loatheb is like so much pressure on this board. Like, look at how much damage he has available next turn. This is going to be lethal with Force Nature Savage War. His opponent cannot brawl going into this turn, and I don't really know what he's got to do. But this is I think this is
done. Position. Almost done. I mean, he's going to have, even if he shield blocks, he would still have lethal, would he not? I mean, that would put him at effective 29 HP, but yeah, that would still be, with Force Nature Savage War, it'd still be lethal.
420, it's 30 exactly. He's got to get through the taunt. So if he shield blocks, I think he's 1 point off of lethal, but, putting your opponent to 1 with having a massive board presence is not a bad thing.
And spending an 8 mana shield block as your whole turn, like...
Yeah, I don't think the 8 mana shield block is going to be the thing that's done here, but
no, I don't think so either, man. So, but I don't know what that is. The turn there's no good turn.
Yeah, I mean, Blackout side of the board has been blacked out for a moment, so we'll get that feed up as quickly as we can. But how much longer this is going to last, I don't know, because this is a spicy meatball. Yeah, he's gonna favor a clear here, and he's gonna get a couple points of armor in the meantime. But I just don't think it's gonna be enough.
Well, it's certainly a start. I think it may keep him alive, at least a turn. There he is up to 29 effective HP, and he has cleared a minion. But that's 10 damage right there, plus...
At least 1 off lethal right now.
Yeah. I think you just go for it. We didn't see what he picked up. We don't know what his other draw was, but I think... I mean, do you think there's any reason to wait?
Yeah, I do think there's reasons to wait. And
Alexstrasza?
Yeah, I think Alexstrasza. Yeah. But Brawl certainly has to be in your mind. But how bad is Brawl for you right now is something else you have to think about. Maybe it's one of the only ways you're actually going to lose the game. But if he's going to attack minions here, I imagine. Yeah, the Armor Smith also is another big threat, because if he Alexstrasza and then picks up some armor behind that, maybe then he's going to actually start to get out of reach, especially if you burned your combo at that point.
Yeah, we'll have to see what he did draw into. I mean, we obviously don't know at this point. We're just getting that feedback, as Admirable said. But I mean, the fact that he Wild Growth, obviously, he's not going to be doing his combo. He's clearing, and
third Innervate gets played.
Wow, what a great addition to the deck! Really changing the meta here. All right, there it is. Oh, Pilot! Wow.
Wow, that is some
Piloted Sky Golem.
Damn. Yeah, those are definitely some big ones. I think this is a good turn. Yeah, this is a good turn to Unleash the Shade too, because you are thinking about Brawl at this point. I think 6 damage is enough. Your opponent doesn't have a direct way to challenge it on the board. It's not. This is the last turn it's going to be able to get unveiled without getting big game huntered. And if your opponent wants to weapon it at this point, you have Force Nature Savage War in hand. You are more than thrilled, I think, with your opponent killing this with a weapon. So really, really good heads up play here. And I think a lot of people would have kept this Shade hidden. And I know that certainly in the past I would have, but. What I've realized is when the Shade hits 6 in a position like this, it's just 6 is enough, because your opponent's still got to deal with it afterwards, especially when you have other threats on the board too.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, it's such a tough board to deal with, and the scary part about brawling this is still, I mean, it's like, say the Shade wins the brawl, and it's gonna have to be a brawl, so it's gonna come down to this. But I mean, if the Pilot of Sky Golem loses it, he still is gonna get the card from that, the Death Rattle, and so it's actually gonna win. So
I think that's his second best result.
Yeah, that's the second best result. Yep, the best would have been him obviously winning. But I mean, if either of the other two won, he would have had that plus the Death Rattle. So
gosh, but just more pressure coming out, and I just don't think it's gonna be enough. I mean, this is 10, 11 damage across the board. And unless Ostkaka's got a second copy of Brawl, I don't see him living this turn. My gosh, just so much damage.
This is brutal, man.
Threat after threat.
Well, Shield Maiden, I mean, it helps him out somewhat, but then he can't play his taunt, so it's like, it's kind of brutal. I mean, maybe the play is just Shield Maiden Deathbite, but that leaves you dead. I don't think there is a play that actually keeps him alive. No, I know there isn't. But I mean, just looking at it from his point of view, if there's not, you know,
I think you want to go Sludge Belcher Deathbite to help to try to play around the most stuff. So you know, you Deathbite out the 4/4. And then try to use Deathbite to recover the board position next turn. You know, sit behind your Sludge Belcher for one more turn. The charge plus
use the Death Rattle plus execute.
Yeah. So I think this is probably his best course of action, but just not going to be enough in the end. Blackout has Force of Nature Savage Roar. Is going to take this. Look at this. He's actually 6. Yeah, it's enough even without Force of Nature. Just the Silence and Force of Nature alone. I'm sorry, and Savage Roar alone is going to be enough. He could have used Force of Nature also, I believe. Yeah, but just
what he's doing here is just hiding the card. Obviously, doesn't want him to know that. There's a Force of Nature. Very high levels to that.
Yeah, when you're going into the next series you play after, when your opponent's been eliminated from this single elimination, they're